We have a very cold day here in Michigan, but it's a perfect day to make some homemade biscuits and gravy. Today we will be making the fluffy buttermilk biscuits, but we'll also be making a hamburger gravy. I know that hamburger gravy is not a common one. Usually they use sausage gravy, but it is very good and it's my husband's favorite. So that's the way I always make it. I know my voice is very raspy, and for whatever reason, about once a year, I lose my voice, but thankfully I feel good. So I'm thankful for that. So we're going to start with making our biscuits first. And as usual, I'll have the recipe down in the description. So I'm going to add the dry ingredients next. And the first ingredient is flour. And that calls for 4.5 cups of flour. The next ingredient is baking powder. That's 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon. And the next ingredient is 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And then we have 2 teaspoons of sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt. So I'm going to combine all of these dry ingredients together. Now that we have all of our dry ingredients mixed up, I'm going to add the butter. I already pre-cubed the butter and I've had it sitting in the refrigerator to keep it cold. If you watched my pie making video, you're going to see that a lot of this is the same way, only the ingredients are a little bit different. But it's very important, even with biscuits, to make sure that your ingredients are very cold. So I try to keep as many things as I can in the refrigerator. So I will add the butter. And I'll stir this all together. The idea is to get the butter covered with flour. Now that the butter is covered with flour, I'm going to cut the butter into the flour. And I'm using a pastry cutter to cut the butter in. You can use knives if you want. So we're trying to get our butter the size of peas. We want them very small. You can pulse this in a food processor, but you want to be careful so that you don't get the butter too warmed up. So it looks like the butter is small enough. You can take a look here and see it's pretty small. So I'm going to make a well here. I'm going to add 2 cups of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you can add 1 tablespoon of either vinegar or lemon juice to the milk to make it into buttermilk. That would be 1 tablespoon per cup. We are using 2 cups of milk, so you need 2 tablespoons of lemon juice or vinegar. You'll want to make sure that your milk is nice and cold. Now we'll just stir it up. If you have to pause in this process, I would recommend putting it in the refrigerator just to keep it cold. We're going to mix it until it's just moistened and it's a shaggy dough. I prefer to use a spoon so as not to warm it too much by using my hands. You'll see many similarities to the pie crust that we just made last week. And if you didn't see that video, I recommend going back and watching that. So it's all mixed together. I'm going to get it out on the counter so we can press it out. Anytime I'm going to roll something out on the counter, I typically get this mat out because it just saves the mess on the counter. So I'm going to dust this with flour. As I've said in other videos, this is my favorite container to use to dust the counter. So we're gonna put this on the mat. And this is where I'll get my hands in here. I think I'll dust my hands a little to incorporate the dough together and press it out. And I'll dust the top of this now. We'll press this out into about a 1-inch rectangle. Now that this is pressed out about 1 inch thick and rectangular, we will fold it over on itself, press it down once more to another inch thick. So this is creating layers by doing this. You can use a rolling pin also for this. It's starting to stick on the bottom, so I'm going to put some flour down there. I'm going to preheat the oven at about 425 since these are almost ready. We'll fold this about 7 times. I grab my rolling pin just to smooth this top out a little bit. Most people just pat it out with their hands, but I kind of want to have a smooth top. And I feel like it'll be a little smoother. A little more consistent in thickness also. Okay, I think that's thin enough. So we have an ungreased baking pan here. You can use a stone, you can use cast iron, which both would be amazing, but I decided to use this pan today. There's many ways you can cut this out. I'm going to use this cutter right here. There's also cutters like this, and you can choose which size you want to use. They have sizes that go all the way down to little like that, or great big huge ones. This would make a massive size biscuit. So it's nice if you can put your cutter in flour. It will help it not be so sticky. If you go straight down and pull it straight back up, it will make a nicer edge on your biscuit. And I'll just set that over here, and I'll just keep going all the way around. It's better if you just go straight down and try not to seesaw back and forth with it. It makes a nicer edge. I'm going to press that down just a little bit because it looks a little thicker there in the middle. And then you have these scraps left over. Just try not to handle them too much. Just kind of wad them up here. Press them a little bit. They won't be as smooth, but they'll still taste the same. And we'll keep doing that till we use the last of the dough. Sometimes what I do is at the end, I just take this ball of dough and I press it into this one will be extra thick, but I just press it inside of that. All right, these are ready to go in the oven once the oven gets preheated to 425. You can put these in the refrigerator. In fact, it's recommended that you do it for a little while to help chill that butter back down. And since my oven is not preheated yet, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the refrigerator. You can also freeze them at this stage to use later. Our oven is preheated, so we can get our biscuits in the oven. I'll set the timer for 20 minutes. Now we'll get started on our hamburger gravy. I have a cast iron skillet here. Everything's better in cast iron. I'll grab my hamburger. I like this flat spoon. It works really well for scraping the bottom of the pan. So I'm making mine with 1 pound of hamburger. This is organic grass-fed beef. So with this, I never drain it. But if you have something, a lot of times the stuff I used to buy, it would leave a lot of grease in the pan. This cooks right down. It's pretty lean. So I don't have to, but you may want to. So I'll let that brown. Okay, so our hamburger is browning up. So I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of butter in it. I'll get this melted. So there's a lot of ways that you could make this. Typically I never use a recipe, but I'm trying to measure things out so that I can put it in a recipe down below. This is very forgiving. Now that my butter is melted, I'm going to add the flour. And the reason for adding the flour at this point is to cook the flour, otherwise you'll get that raw flour taste. So you'll want to brown that. And you might see Sparky, she's down here trying to catch anything that might fall. I'll have to put them on video soon so that you can meet them. We have a male and a female, Sparky and Moose. You may even hear the sounds of them. And we'll also get our, I'm going to turn this down, I had it cranked right up there. We'll get salt. I would say maybe a half a teaspoon to start with. I just put it on by looks. I put onion flakes in mine and I put a lot of them in. It's nice to get your spices in while it's browning. It enhances the flavor with them cooking in here. Now that our flour is cooked, I'm going to add the milk. And this is 3 cups of milk. Whole milk is best if you have that. If anything stuck to the bottom, you'll want to scrape the bottom. Once it starts to thicken, if it gets too thick, add more milk. And if it's not thick enough, you can always make a paste with flour and water together and then put it in here to make it thicker. It takes a little while for it to thicken up. It'll have to get nice and hot and then it'll start to get thicker. I'll turn my burner back up to speed up the process. Oh, it looks like our biscuits are done early. I better get them out of the oven. They're nice and brown. I'm going to butter these biscuits. So our gravy is ready. I've added extra salt and pepper because that's the way I like it, but you can make it however you like. Take a look at them biscuits. Nice and flaky. I think they are going to taste very good. I think we need to give them a try. All right, I got butter on it and the gravy on it. So now it's time to give it a try. It's very good. I highly recommend giving this a try. Like I say, many people use sausage gravy, but this is some amazing gravy. You can adjust the taste with added spices to enhance the flavor, whatever you like. And you can garnish the top with parsley. It always adds a little bit of green so it's not so boring. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you'll give it a try and post it on the Country Legacy page. It will be in the description below. If you enjoyed this, please click subscribe and join me again next week. Thank you and have a blessed day.